Hello everyone! We recently pushed quite a big upgrade from the last public version, which went live in February. So I figured I'd spend a couple of minutes going over the most important features and changes. If you go to our startlog page, which you can easily open from anywhere on the website, you'll see all the changes we've added over time. Let's start with version 0.7.1. The biggest change in this version was that we finally added support for a different graphics backend, namely Direct3D. FilePilot originally used OpenGL, which is still available in the settings. The main reason we switched was that many people were having issues with poor OpenGL drivers. So I would regularly receive emails asking why there was an extra black bar at the top of the window. Direct3D is a native Windows API and as such generally has better driver support. The app should work the same with either backend, but it was nice to finally have a choice. Next, we finally switched to the modern version of the Windows File Transfer dialog. Previously, FilePilot used the older version, which didn't display the nice graph at the bottom. Another nice thing about the new dialog is that it supports better integration with third-party tools that want to hook into it. Our asset system also received an upgrade, which not only fixed various bugs we had before, but also allowed users to configure how much space they want to give FilePilot for caching assets such as icons and thumbnails, as well as various previews such as images. You can now finally view images in the inspector with their EXIF orientation metadata properly applied. We also added an option to globally disable tooltips, since some users were getting annoyed by them after spending a lot of time in FilePilot and no longer getting much useful information from them. The rest are various small improvements and bug fixes that I don't have time to go into in depth here. But you can easily go through them and see if any of them fixes issues you've previously had with FilePilot. Version 0.8.1 brought even more changes, including some features that people had been asking for a long time. The biggest star is definitely the tree view. This one took a lot of time to add properly, in a way that plays nicely with all the existing aspects of FilePilot, such as filtering and various sorting criteria, like putting folders or recents on top, type filtering, and so on. You can activate tree view using the slider in the bottom right corner, or with a mouse, or even with a hotkey. You can descend into a subfolder by pressing the small arrow next to the folder name. You can also use the arrow keys on your keyboard. But it gets better. If you shift-click the arrow or use Shift plus arrow, you can recursively open all subfolders. If you press Ctrl E, it will automatically do this for all the folders in the current listing. When you change the sort criteria, it will apply to all open subfolders while preserving the parent hierarchy. The same is true if you, for example, toggle recents. Recent items will jump to the top, but only within their own parent folder. Or if you toggle whether folders or files should appear on top. Filtering also works a bit differently than in a regular expanded folder. When you start typing into the filter, all items that match the pattern will be shown, while the hierarchy is still preserved. Parent folders that are not strictly part of the match will be grayed out. This is super useful when you're trying to find the parent folder where a particular file resides. The same is true if you start filtering by type. FilePilot will preserve the hierarchy and gray out parent folders, while still giving you useful context about where each item is located. So the main difference between tree view and other views is how expanded hierarchies are presented. Other views will bring the best results to the top. If you're trying to see where items are located within the hierarchy, use tree view. And yes, in the spirit of FilePilot, you can expand these hierarchies across a huge number of files and it just works. Next, we finally introduced a proper list view for users who prefer browsing files in columns and moving horizontally through them. Group by was one of those features that a lot of people were very accustomed to in File Explorer, and FilePilot finally added it. You can activate grouping from the right-click context menu, just like you would with sorting, or you can use the command palette, where you can even assign hotkeys to the grouping options you use often. For instance, I'll assign Ctrl-G to date modified, which I use frequently. Once you activate it, items will be sorted into buckets depending on the grouping criteria you've chosen. Within each bucket, item will be sorted by the current sort criteria. You can open and close individual groups, or right-click any group to open or close all groups at once. If you apply a type filter, all matched items will stay in their original buckets, which is super handy. Filtering currently breaks the grouping, which now that I think about it, might not be desirable. Preserving the original groups, like TreeView does, might actually make more sense, so this might change in the future. Groups work nicely in all views except TreeView, although there are plans to make them coexist there as well. Groups are especially useful when you expand folder hierarchies. And of course, FilePilot can handle large numbers of files with groupings just fine. Next, we finally added more control and options for saving folder view settings. View settings include things like sort criteria and zoom level. Previously, users had to save view settings for each folder separately. Now you can save them for an entire hierarchy. You can also set a default for the whole app. You can now select files using checkboxes. It's handy sometimes when you're too lazy to reach for the keyboard. The rest is again a lot of smaller features and improvements that I don't have time to go over one by one in this video. Also, we pushed a hotfix update after the latest big release, which I definitely recommend downloading because it addresses some of the crashes people have been reporting. This is pretty much it for this time. If you want to see what we're up to next, you can visit our roadmap page. This only lists the bigger things we are working toward. It doesn't include smaller improvements or bug fixes. There is no particular order in which we'll tackle these, but together they form the vision for what version 1 should look like. If you want to join discussions about FilePilot's features and directions, report a bug, or just hang out, join our Discord community, which has grown considerably over the last year or so. If you don't use Discord, you can also send us an email, but bear in mind that I'm usually a bit slower at responding there. Until next time, take care and God bless.